Okay, we could talk about Ken Block for hours probably, but let's
Welcome
jump
to the
into
Ken
the
Block
hot take.
Appreciation Podcast.
So here we go. An age-old discussion: Jeep Wrangler versus Ford Bronco. Back in the day, definitely two off-road contenders to get you out there in the outdoors and breaking into the off-road industry. But we fast forward to now, we have two new models that are tapping out well above 100K in price point. You have the Rubicon Wrangler with the 392 Hemi, 118,000, something like that. Don't quote me on it. And then you also have, the Bronco Raptor, same price point. So have we gone from, attainable to unattainable in this price bracket with these cars? Which one's better? And are we just getting away from the spirit of what this car is? So let's hear it.
The Raptor. I feel comfortable as I'm going to raise my hand and probably say I'm the only one that's owned both a Bronco and a Wrangler. So for many years, both vehicles, very different, I think, approaches, but I have to give it, no matter what, if we're talking about it, as a gentleman who has a Thunderbird tattoo on his arm, there's Ford in my blood, but I think Wrangler takes it any day of the week because they've kept it alive the whole time. Like Ford's bringing it back. They're cashing in on a movement that's very popular right now, but the Wrangler never went anywhere. It was always here, always serving us, always taking us off road. And I don't know enough about the smaller models, but like a regular Sport will get you very far. Even though the 392 is awesome, the Sport will do a lot. I had a Sport with better wheels. It was great. Anyway, I do think that kind of pricing is crazy, and I really want to meet the guy who's actually taking like a Bronco Raptor off road and getting loose and sending it on his 100 and something thousand. Like, they're going to be babied. Who buys $100,000 car and is like, yeah, I'm about to crash it. Let's go. And I want to meet that dude for one and party with him. But
you haven't watched Whistling Diesel on YouTube then.
Yeah, sure, but those if your income stream is crashing expensive vehicles, sure. But I mean, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a general consumer. I don't get paid to do weird stuff in the cars that I buy. It seems a little wild to me that, they're not going to be used for what they should be used for.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree with you on that. If you haven't seen the one where he torture tests the G-Wagon in the dunes,
that is a good one. Highly recommended.
But I'll back that too. I would go Wrangler partly because of the OG roots and just never having deviated. And I've never been in a Bronco, so not at least in a new Bronco, but used to wheel with a buddy's Wrangler, and that thing was capable. Like the factory lockers, sway bar disconnects, like some of the features they packed it with, and that was back in the late aughts, I guess that's what we're calling it now, like 2007, 2008, where that stuff was kind of rolling out after Jeep had been taken over by, I guess it was Daimler Chrysler, and where they were bringing in some of Mercedes traction control logic and stuff. Like, just technically it was a wild vehicle to wheel with. I think that, the price point's ridiculous though. I think a lot of, at least for me, like off-roading community was a lot about grassroots and DIY. And so when you start talking about vehicles that are, you need a six-figure salary to even come close to touching it, that kind of gets away from what the point was. But that's my opinion.
That's why Forerunners will always be here for you.
Thank you, Marcus.
Just here with their warm embrace. Dude. 250,000 mile Forerunner for 14K, just ready to take you where you need to go.
We talked about that on the 2 episodes back. That was my second car, and I think I paid $2,500 for it, and that thing took me everywhere in the mountains. So yeah, that's much more my flavor.
Yeah, there's so many capable off-road vehicles out there in a much more achievable price point, and it does bring up the question of, okay, we have this Bronco versus Wrangler discussion, which I'd love to see where everyone else weighs in, and then also this idea of, like, do you need to go there because there's so much more attainable off-road fun, and are these people, like you said, Moretti, I think, even driving those cars off-road? It's really interesting.
I was just gonna say I'm partial. I'm a 4Runner owner myself, so I'm in the middle over here. I wouldn't own either of them. I get the Jeep legacy. I think it's really cool that they've kept it going for so long. The Bronco has made some really good improvements on areas that that Jeep has failed on for a very long time. I think for the owners who are buying Broncos, I think they're enjoying the independent front suspension and kind of more of the creature comforts that are coming with the Bronco. But if they're just weekend toys, I also don't have 6 figures to spend on a car that I'll destroy. So I wouldn't go either route. But I think if they're dealing it and enjoying it on the weekend, the Bronco seems like a very solid option right out the gate.
Nice. Mike?
Yeah, fun anecdote working the parts counter at a Jeep dealer. Most people that buy a Wrangler do not have any intention of going off-road ever. They like the look, which is fine, to each their own. But it's always kind of been baffling to me that people would come up to the parts counter and ask, if they could buy a top that'll make their Jeep quieter. And it's just like you bought a Wrangler. It's an off-roading machine. I'm not sure. It's like buying peanuts and asking them to taste like almonds. It never made much sense. But for me, I don't really have a preference.
That old saying.
Can we insert a picture of a Jeep in a mall parking lot, on a curb?
No hating now. No hating. But I think I don't really have a preference either way. Both of them are really cool trucks. I've owned a Jeep and I've gone off-roading in one. I have not been a new Bronco. They both look good, but that being said, in my opinion, if you're going to get an off-roader, it needs to, at the very least, come with a manual. You get a lot more control. And if it's a dedicated off-roading machine, I really think it should come with one. So it needs to be cheap, locking diffs, manual trans, and low gearing. So that wins my vote. So whichever one comes in the cheapest, I think I'd be happy with. But I think that makes it clear that $100,000 plus for an off-roading machine just doesn't make much sense to me.
I think I'll flip it a little bit because I think we're all kind of in agreement. Wow, that seems crazy expensive, and who's buying that and then taking it out and wrecking it the next day. But I also think there's
insert Viper owners from the 90s.
This car has all the sensitivity and social responsibility of a Tomcat.
I think there's something to we are all of a certain mind, right? Obviously we're all here because we like cars, we like tinkering with cars. So the idea of I want your cheapest one with locking diffs and then I'm going to do my own stuff with it, right? That's part of what we love. But on the flip side of that, having those halo models, props to Ford and props to Jeep for making those, because I think that is what allows us to go buy, like me with the Wrangler, buy the Sport with the Rubicon wheels on it, and then take it and go do my own thing. So there is still an entry point that's probably much more. I don't know enough about the current offering to say what it is, but I'm sure there's I think the Willys Sport right now for the Wrangler is the lowest ends with the most off-road capability, and same with the Bronco. I think has I want to call it the Sasquatch package or something, or the Badlands, where you can get the most basic model with kind of steel wheels, a manual, and the locker, and that's all it has, which is pretty great that that's available. Car pricing in general is kind of crazy. As I'm an old man shaking my cane here, car pricing is out of control, but in the current market, they still do provide those entry levels, but the halos are what allow them to spend marketing dollars and build out that line.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And I think there's some good call out there. I would probably be much more inclined to spend, $15,000-$20,000 on a used base off-road vehicle, and then drop another 10 or 15 on bumpers and lights and all lockers, whatever else I need to do to it. But I think your point, the halo model, so to speak, sets kind of a vision for what's possible, right? And what you could where you could take it with your canvas, that a lot of people are kind of setting that as hey, here's what we could do. Now how do we do that on a budget? So that's a valid counterpoint.
Yeah. And we don't have time for this specific conversation, but one day I'd love to get into the aftermarket ideals, right? Because I think they're just seeing a lot of money on the table with how much people spend on these models. They're like, hey, we'll build it for you. Just buy it from us. That's a whole other conversation of supporting the aftermarket versus the OEM, right? That's a whole piece of it.
Yeah, that's a great call out, Moretti. And I'm going to weigh in here, and I want to hear Zach's opinion. We'll keep it going.
I don't want to hear Zach's opinion, so we could just skip right past that.
Zach, let's just go straight to you. What do you think, man? Are you a Wrangler or a Bronco guy?
Suck him already.
Yeah. So once suck him already. Once you, I would say so. Yeah, it sucked when Ford got rid of them in '96, and I would say that basically anything before. Since they brought him back, I haven't been pleased with him. I think I have something codified in my head of what a Bronco is.
Okay, gang, let's take on the tough stuff.
Only one four-wheel drive vehicle has this combination of style and toughness. The Ford Bronco 2.
What it should sound like, what it should smell like, you know. I had a good buddy when I was a kid growing up whose their family had a Bronco, like rode to soccer practices and the thing. So I have this idea, and all the new ones just don't fit that idea. So I'm having a hard time with seeing the new Broncos on the road and being like, what is that? I don't even know what that is anymore. But to go with kind of like those halo models, man, I think that speaks more to society, I think, and culture than our manufacturers, right? Because how many people get fully decked out in Patagonia and live in a place that gets as cold as 50 degrees at night, you know? It's like people buy to fit their persona, not to fit their need. And so when you think about like, okay,
behind me real quick.
Hey, that's just the reality that we're living in now. So people are going to buy that, you know, $150,000 off-road vehicle and not once take it off-road. And
sure,
you know, that's just life nowadays, whether we like it or not. But yeah.
So old school Bronco it is for you, and yep. I'm gonna go Bronco too. Actually, you know, I think I'm full in on the 120K Bronco Raptor. Not saying I can afford it, definitely not. But
I'm definitely down to drive it though.
Definitely down to drive it and off-road the heck out of it. And I've ridden in quite a few Raptors and driven quite a few Raptors, and I have not personally driven the Bronco Raptor yet. However, the experience that I've had in those F-150 Raptors, like, holy cow, is it such a fun truck to drive. I mean, it's so capable, it's so fast. You can take it over anything. It's literally like you're in a Baja truck, but it's a production vehicle and it's warranted. So,
and it's so dang comfortable. My buddy has a Raptor and it has like seat cooling. Like it's keeping, you know, the tingly bits nice and cool in the middle of a hot summer day out in the desert while you're going 150 over dunes. It's crazy. You're taking a nap in the back while it's happening. It's awesome.
This is what is most important for Moretti when buying a car. Can the tingly bits be cold?
I'm not even joking. The first time I experienced that, I was like, I will never buy a car again that does not have seat coolers. Period. The end.
Yeah. Okay. Feel you on that one. Like the cooled seats are a game changer. And for that reason, Bronco Raptor for me, I think they're just awesome. Not throwing against any of the Jeep lineage though. There's no question that the Wrangler in my mind, you know, I owned a Wrangler when I was younger. It was one of my first cars or first trucks. And love that thing. I mean, even the old, like, or for me, older, like 80s and 90s models, you know, they would just go anywhere. So
I want to add two things. But before we drift off this, just because I want to share a story. My first of two things is my 89 Bronco was one of my favorite vehicles I ever had. Bought it at midnight in a parking lot in a mall. So I didn't realize half the body was like bonded together. One of the first cars I did my own maintenance on because I bought it for like $500 and the windows didn't work. So I put in new window motors and I put them in upside down. So you had to press up to roll the windows down and down to roll the windows up. And I left it that way because it just made me so happy that I had actually done it. But I also, just to share a story, I cracked a block on that vehicle driving up in the Angeles Oaks forest, going like straight up a 90-degree mountain. And then I had to coast back down the highway just to get to a turnoff point with no power steering or anything. And boy, oh boy, was that a wild experience. So I just that's a story I'd be happy to share in more depth at another time.
We should just put a GoPro on Moretti.
I think the Jeep Bronco conversation segues so perfectly into community, because there's obviously a Ford community, but there's not really a Bronco community. I mean, I'm sure there is, but not the way there's like a Jeep community, right? You got the Jeep wave, you got the whole subculture around it. What's that?
The little ducks that they put on, right? That's a thing in the Jeep world. They put the ducks, like if they see a nice Jeep in the parking lot, they collect ducks.
I walk in that house, I kick the door down, I say, "Babe, we got a duck."
If you are a Jeep duck person, will you please message us? Because I want to hear about where you're getting the ducks and why you put them out. Please inform me of this subculture that I need to be a part of moving forward in my life. But I think it's just a great segue into community, because that's a great example of Jeep has kept the Jeep community alive, where Bronco doesn't really have one. There's a Ford community for sure, but.
All right. So to close us out on this hot take, are you a Jeep or a Ford person? Are you Bronco or Wrangler? We want to know. And if you can tell Moretti about this duck culture, please, get in the chat. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah. Send me pictures of ducks on Jeeps. That's what I want to say.
Perfect.